Welcome to the Whitton Library community space, transformed in normal times by local people into a cinema, a theatre, a comedy or poetry club, and a place in which to share knowledge and interests, such as the history of our town. So until things get back to normal, why not join us for a taste of things to come?
Hello, I'm Sarah, the chairperson of the Friends of Whitton Library, and I've always aspired to be a stand-up comic. And it's something I've always wanted to do, like eating a pickled egg or doing some meditation. Well, it's better than doing nothing, isn't it? And here I am, large as life, as they say, buoyant, keeping going in these tricky times, and we're not going to bring anything down by trying to play the guitar. But I'm keeping very healthy. I went for a 13-mile bike ride this morning, and it was only the last 9 miles that I used the motor. And people were constantly, frantically trying to overtake me, frantically trying to get home in order to relax. And here we are in this lockdown period. And do you remember the beginning bit of it? When there was all these foods you couldn't get, only 3 lettuces allowed every day. And I went into the supermarket and I thought, who wants 3 lettuces? Who can use 3 lettuces? And I came out and there were all these bunny rabbits lined up holding placards and saying, don't forget our lettuce. It just shows how small-minded I was, thinking it was just, enough. And it wasn't, because tomatoes absolutely won't do. And here we are in the library, where it's click and collect. But it's not just that, it's also more than that, because you can't just use the toilet when you want to. So it's a case of click and collect and hold it and keep those muscles down there coming up and down and up and down, and remembering the Kegel exercises from childbirth. And when you're really good at it, you can do them whilst you're jumping up and down, but I'm not going to demonstrate that bit, not even on Zoom. And I remember the time that I came up first to the library. We just moved here and it was 7 years ago. And I was feeling quite friendless and quite lonely. And I remembered some of those friends that my children used to have when they were young. And up I came and it was wonderful. There they were, Harry McClary from Donaldson's Dairy, Hercules Morse as big as a horse, Schnitzel von Krumm with a very low tum, Burglar Bill, I'll have some of that. The octopus from the rainbow fish, I've been waiting for you. And remembering that, I became quite emotional. And I thought of my Auntie Eva, who actually used to live in Willesden, but she said she lived in Kilburn, or is it the other way? One area is posher than the other. And she had come as a refugee from Nazi Germany, and she said to me, any society where they're burning books or you're not allowed to read books is a cause for alarm. So I felt very warm about the library, and I could imagine all those dreadful people from abroad, because it was the time of the Brexit. And on the one hand, I wasn't sure which way to swing on it, because on one hand, some of the states were quite fascist that are part of the European Union, and on the other hand, I thought it was protective of us from war. And I could imagine all these people rushing down to the French and the Belgian coast and wanting to get across to England and piling into these mirror dinghies with people saying, I'm sorry, you can't come in my boat. There's only 2 people that can fit in, and coming along. And here they are coming up the M3 and they're onto the A3, and I'll be in the library and I'll be behind the pulpit or whatever it's called, the counter, that's it, behind the counter. And I'll pull all the chairs down and I'll protect myself and I'll protect the whole library. But anyway, the end of that fantasy. When I was there in the library looking at these children's books, I saw a sign saying, become a friend of the library. And I thought, well, friendship is a 2-way street. I thought, I'll join this, and remembered all the times from when I was 4, when I'd been sitting on those tiny wee chairs, how much I'd enjoyed it. And I came along for the first meeting. And guess what? There were Pringles. And there were Twiglets. And I thought, I'm going to sit next to those Twiglets, which I did, and I'm going to eat them all. And I'm just going to leave 3 for somebody else. And it was an evening that we decided to do a comedy night and tell some jokes. So I thought, well, I'll tell my joke about Bernard and Phyllis, where Bernard says to Phyllis, Phyllis, you've got a communication problem. I'm going over there to the other side of the room, which he did. And then he went, Phyllis, can you hear me? No reply. And he stood in the middle of the room. Phyllis, can you hear me? No reply. So he stood right in front of her. He said, Phyllis, can you hear me? Yes, Bernard, she said, for the third time, yes. Anyway, so our boss said to us, on the night of the comedy, you can bring a friend. And I thought, oh dear, I've not lived here very long, but I don't have any friends here. And this is modern life, isn't it? That I know somebody in Buenos Aires and I've got another friend that's in Christchurch, New Zealand, but nobody nearby. And then I remembered my friend Ruth in Teddington. And I'd once phoned her up and said, can I borrow some sugar? And she said, yes, as long as it's between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Otherwise you can use Sainsbury's. So I thought, well, I can just about hold out from that time without having sugar, without needing a hit. And so she agreed to come along to the show. And on the night in question, there I was very excited, but of course, like many people, I couldn't decide what to wear. And then I decided that I was going to wear my blue spotty dressing gown because I identified with those women from Belfast, from Manchester, that wore their dressing gowns to take the children to school. Was it such a crime? Were they starting wars? So on the evening I came out of the house and my husband followed behind me, and he's very, very private and he wouldn't be seen even wearing his smoking jacket outside the house, never mind his pyjamas and dressing gown. And he's shouting, have you taken your pills? And my youngest son's with me and he's saying, this is making me nervous, which I'm quite glad about because with children all that's left to us is to embarrass them, isn't it? And I came up the Snicket in my dressing gown, and at the top of the Snicket I went down under the motorway, up down Jubilee Road, took a right. My son was relieved that I wasn't parading myself in front of his school. And then he had to go into a supermarket to get himself some berries to see himself on. And I took out a mortgage, meanwhile, in the bank to pay for them. And then it's left into the library, and I was on the stage, telling stories and jokes with Fatima. I'm a Jewish woman. She's a Muslim woman, and there we are together. Yasser Arafat, Yitzhak Rabin. Ball your socks off. We're going to go around London, me and this other woman, and we're going to tell jokes. And we get on really well, and we even send each other Christmas cards. Thank you very much.